The question no one could answer. Across the endless stars, empires rose and fell. Fleets of warships painted the night with fire, and proud civilizations carved their names into history. Yet among all the countless battles and endless wars, there was one strange fact that no one could explain. Humanity was never attacked. Earth remained untouched. No empire claimed their world. No armada dared to test their borders. While alien kingdoms consumed each other like predators in the dark, the humans walked unharmed, and no one knew why. Whispers spread in markets and war councils alike. Merchants spoke of it in hushed voices when trade routes brought them close to human space. Soldiers laughed nervously whenever the idea of marching against Earth was raised. Even rulers who claimed to fear nothing seemed to avoid speaking of it too loudly. There was a silence around humanity, a silence that felt heavier than fear itself. A young alien scholar named Vaylin had heard these whispers all his life. He was born in the Grand Archive of Trelith, a world where knowledge was kept like treasure. His people valued records above gold, and every truth, no matter how dangerous, was preserved on crystal tablets hidden deep under the surface. Yet even here, in the halls of knowledge, the question remained unanswered. The records showed every battle ever fought, every empire ever destroyed. But when it came to humanity, there was nothing. No wars, no attacks, no victories to explain their strange safety. It was as if the universe itself had chosen to protect them. This silence burned in Vaylin's mind. He was not a soldier nor a ruler, but a seeker of truth. And so, late one night, when the archive halls were dim and silent, he stepped into the forbidden section. Few dared to walk these corridors. Here were the records that the Council of Knowledge had locked away, records said to be too dangerous for common eyes. Dust and shadow filled the air, and broken tablets lay forgotten on the floor. Vaylin's hands trembled as he brushed away the dirt from one of them. At first the words were faded, carved in an ancient script. But as he read, his eyes widened. The tablets spoke of fleets that had once marched against humanity. Vast armies, powerful and proud, had sailed into the stars to claim Earth as theirs. And every single one of them had vanished. Not one survivor, not one record of retreat. Their names had been erased, their banners forgotten, as if they had never existed. Only these hidden warnings remained, carved by those who dared to whisper the truth. Vaylin's mind raced. Could it be chance? Could so many fleets simply vanish without cause? Or was there something about humans that no one dared to say aloud? He carried the tablet back to his study, his heart pounding. He searched through other forbidden records, piecing together fragments from different ages. He found notes of dying empires, final cries etched into stone before they vanished. We should not have touched the humans. Their world is death to us. Do not repeat our mistake. Again and again, the same message appeared in different voices. Across centuries, the more Vaylin read, the colder the air around him seemed to grow. It was not just fear. It was something deeper, something older, but knowledge never stays hidden for long. Soon, whispers of Vaylin's research reached the ears of the council. They summoned him, their faces stern and silent, their robes heavy with power. "Why do you dig into shadows that were buried for a reason?" they asked. Vaylin stood before them, his voice steady, though his heart was not. "Because the question has no answer. Because the galaxy deserves to know why humanity stands untouched while empires fall. Are we to remain blind forever?" The council did not reply at once. They only exchanged looks, as if words were dangerous. Finally, one of them spoke, his voice like iron. "Some truths are better left unknown. Leave this path, scholar, before you destroy yourself." But Vaylin could not. That night, he sat alone in his chamber, staring at the stars through the great glass dome above him. The question burned in his mind. Why were humans never targeted? Why did every empire that dared to face them vanish without trace? The stars offered no answer, only silence. And yet, deep inside, Vaylin knew he had stepped onto a path from which he could not turn back. The truth was out there, buried in the dust of forgotten wars, carved into ruins no one dared to touch. And he would find it, no matter the cost. Far across the void, Earth turned slowly in its orbit, calm and ordinary to those who looked upon it. But Vaylin felt a chill as he gazed at it in the archive's star maps. For the first time, he wondered not why humanity was never attacked, but what would happen if someone tried again. The silence around Earth was not natural. It was not mercy. It was something else, something the galaxy feared too much to name, and Vaylin was about to uncover it. A silent pattern. Vaylin could not rest after what he had discovered. The warnings carved into old stone and broken tablets filled his thoughts. They spoke not of myth, not of legend, but of repeated loss. Again and again, across centuries, powerful empires had turned their gaze toward Earth, and every one of them had been erased. In the archives, he traced the records further. He found fragments of trade reports that ended without warning. He found half-written treaties, signed with human representatives. Yet the names of the alien signers were scratched away, as if the universe had swallowed them whole. There was no single empire to blame, no rival force that struck them down. The pattern was the same. Any attempt to reach Earth ended in silence. The pattern troubled him more than any weapon could. A weapon could be studied, feared, or defended against. But silence. Silence gave nothing, no warning, no weakness, no answers. Vaylin recorded his findings, sketching timelines on long scrolls of crystal paper. Centuries aligned before his eyes, each pointing to the same conclusion. Humans were not attacked because those who tried had never lived long enough to tell the tale. One night, under the blue glow of the archive lamps, Vaylin gathered his closest colleague, a fellow scholar named Irelth. He unrolled the scrolls across the table. "Do you see it?" he whispered. Irelth leaned forward, his sharp eyes tracing the lines. He was older than Vaylin, his scales dull with age, his voice heavy with experience. "It is a graveyard," he said at last. "Every arrow points to Earth and every arrow breaks." Vaylin nodded. "But why? How? Humans are not strong. Their armies are small, their technology ordinary. And yet—" he paused, his voice tight. "Yet no one survives them." Irelth's eyes narrowed. "You're stepping into dangerous ground, young scholar. Patterns such as these are not studied for long. You must know the risk." "I know," Vaylin said. "But does that not make it more important? Knowledge hidden in silence is knowledge worth chasing." Irelth sighed, pressing a clawed hand against the scroll. "Then you must understand something. If this truth has been buried for so long, it is because the truth is not safe. Perhaps even now, by looking too close, you draw the same silence upon yourself." The words lingered long after Irelth left. Vaylin lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his small chamber. Was it possible? Could knowledge itself be dangerous? Could the mere act of asking the question place him in danger? He shivered but knew he could not stop. The following days, he searched further, this time outside the archives. He sought old travelers, smugglers, who had wandered too close to human borders. He listened in dark corners of starports, exchanging coin for stories. One smuggler, a grizzled creature with one blind eye, leaned forward in a dim tavern and whispered, "I flew near their borders once. Not too close, but close enough to see their patrol craft. They looked ordinary, small, weak, but there was something in the way they moved. They were not afraid, not of me, not of anyone. It was like watching hunters who already knew the kill was theirs." Another spoke of a mining fleet that vanished after setting course for the asteroid belt near Earth. No wreckage, no distress signals. Just silence, piece by piece. The stories fed the pattern. Silence after silence, disappearance after disappearance. Always the same outcome, always the same fear. The question grew heavier. Vaylin realized it was not only the absence of attacks that made humans untouchable. It was the shadow of what came after. The silence did not belong to humans alone. It swallowed entire civilizations. But why? He returned to the archives one final time. In the deepest chamber, hidden beneath layers of locked gates, he found an old, cracked sphere of crystal. It hummed faintly as if alive. The inscription carved around it was written in a language older than empires. With careful hands he translated the words, "Those who seek to conquer them seek their own end." The human spirit is not conquered. It consumes, it endures. It breaks the chains of fate itself. The words froze him. Was it possible? Could the humans themselves be the weapon? Not through ships or guns, but through something deeper, something written into their very existence? The thought both thrilled and terrified him. He looked again at the crystal sphere, at the warning etched by hands long dead. The message was clear. Humanity was untouchable, not because of what they carried, but because of what they were. When Vaylin left the archives that night, the city felt different. The lights seemed dimmer, the streets quieter. For the first time, he noticed shadows following him, figures in the distance, eyes that turned away when he looked. The silence he had studied was no longer distant. It had come close, and in that silence, Vaylin understood one thing. He was not the only one watching humanity. Others had seen the pattern. Others were determined to keep it hidden. And if they had erased empires, what would they do to a single scholar? Whispers of the past Vaylin no longer trusted the silence around him. Ever since the shadows had followed his steps, he had felt the weight of unseen eyes. But the question drove him forward. Every page he uncovered, every warning he read, pulled him closer to a truth he could not abandon. The archives could no longer give him answers. They had only shown him fragments, broken pieces of something far larger. If he wanted to know the whole story, he would have to search outside the safety of his world. And so he planned his journey to forgotten ruins, where older truths might still be carved in stone. His first destination was a dead planet on the edge of the galaxy. Long ago, it had belonged to the Zaith Dominion, a proud empire that had tried to seize every world it could reach. The archives claimed their fleets had once set sail for Earth, but none returned. Soon after, their empire crumbled, leaving nothing but ashes. When Vaylin's small vessel descended through the thin, dying atmosphere, the ruins stretched before him like broken teeth. Black towers leaned against the red sky, and wind howled through empty streets. There was no life left, no sound but the hollow breath of the world itself. He walked among the ruins until he reached a great stone wall near the center of the city. Symbols were carved across its surface, worn by time but still visible. Vaylin brushed the dust away with trembling hands. The words were desperate, scratched into the stone by those who had seen the end coming. "We reached for Earth. We should not have. Forgive us." Another carving lay beside it, almost buried beneath rubble. "Do not provoke the humans. Their silence is death." The air felt heavier as he read. The city seemed to watch him, as if the ruins themselves remembered what had happened. For days he searched the abandoned halls, gathering fragments of writing, maps and records. All pointed to the same truth. The Zaith had vanished the moment they tried to strike humanity. It was not war. It was not defeat. It was erasure. When he left the planet, the whispers followed him in his dreams. He heard the voices of the fallen pleading with him to stop. But he could not stop. He had seen too much. His second journey took him deeper still, to a shattered moon where the walls of ancient temples stood beneath open skies. Here every surface was covered in carvings, not stories of gods, not victories of kings, but endless warnings, repeated in 100 tongues. Turn back. Do not touch Earth. The warnings grew stranger the longer he read them. Some claimed the humans were protected by unseen guardians. Others said humans themselves carried something within, a fire that could not be extinguished. Still others spoke of an unbroken will that shattered armies. One carving chilled him most of all. It showed crude images, fleets of warships surrounding Earth, followed by fire, followed by silence. And then, in the last panel, a single human figure remained standing among the ruins of the invaders. Vaylin's heart pounded. The humans did not look strong. They looked ordinary, yet the carvings told a different story. Something inside them broke empires apart. When he returned to his ship, he found Irelth waiting for him. His old colleague had followed, drawn by worry and by curiosity he could not admit. "You should stop," Irelth said, as they stood in the silent halls of the temple. "You have seen the pattern. You have seen the warnings. Why chase the whispers further? Do you want to be swallowed too? Valen shook his head. I want to know what makes them different. What force keeps them safe when the galaxy devours everything else? Do you not want to understand? Irelth's eyes were dark. Understanding has a price. Truth is not free. You will learn, but it will cost you everything. Still, Valen pressed on. Together they copied the carvings, stored them in their ship's archives, and drew maps to forgotten places where the warnings were strongest. The path was dangerous, but the whispers guided them. One night, as they drifted through the cold void, Valen looked out the viewport at the endless stars. He thought of Earth, small and fragile in the vast sea of galaxies. How could such a world command such fear? How could such a people silence empires? The question no longer felt like simple curiosity. It was beginning to feel like destiny. The more he searched, the more he felt the truth was waiting for him, calling to him. The whispers of the past were not only warnings. They were also a map, and that map pointed in one direction, toward Earth itself. Valen knew then that he could not turn away. The past had spoken. To learn the truth, he would have to face humanity directly. But even as he made the choice, the silence around him grew deeper. Shadows moved closer, and somewhere in that silence, an answer was waiting. An answer that would change everything he believed about strength, survival, and the place of humans in the galaxy. The discovery. The stars stretched endless across the void as Valen's ship cut its way through the silence. The whispers of ruins, the warnings carved in stone, the voices of fallen empires, all of them had pointed in one direction. Earth. It was no longer a theory. It was no longer a question. The truth waited there, at the heart of human space, and Valen could not escape the pull. Beside him, Irelth watched the navigation charts with unease. We should not go farther, he said at last. His voice was low, but the weight behind it was heavy. You have seen what happens to those who come too close. The silence swallows them. Valen's eyes did not leave the stars. The silence swallows the arrogant. The ones who came with fleets, with fire. We come with questions. Perhaps that will be different, but even as he said the words, he did not fully believe them. The journey stretched over weeks, through border systems where traders grew nervous at the mention of Earth. Every time they asked for directions, every time they searched for maps, the answer was the same: silence. Merchants changed the subject. Star captains turned away. No one wanted to speak of humanity, yet at last, the pale blue dot came into view. Earth, ordinary in appearance, fragile even, surrounded by the faint glitter of satellites. The moment his ship entered human space, alarms lit the panels. Dozens of signals locked onto them. Satellites scanned their hull. Invisible lines of defense tracked every movement. Valen froze, certain that weapons would strike at any moment, but nothing happened. The ship slowed, surrounded by human patrol craft. The ships looked smaller than he expected, less polished, almost simple. Yet there was a precision in the way they moved, as if every pilot knew exactly where to be, exactly how to respond. A voice came through the comms, firm and calm. "This is Earth Patrol. You are entering restricted space. State your purpose." Valen's throat tightened. He glanced at Irelth, then leaned toward the comms. "We come as scholars. We seek knowledge, nothing more." There was a pause. Then the voice answered, "You will follow our coordinates. Any deviation, and you will be destroyed." The patrol ships led them down through the clouds, past oceans that stretched like endless mirrors, past cities glowing with light. They landed in a spaceport unlike any Valen had seen. It was not vast or gilded. It was practical, alive with movement, filled with people who looked no different from any ordinary species. Yet there was something in their eyes, something that unsettled him. The humans greeted them without fear. Soldiers in simple uniforms stood ready, but they did not raise their weapons. Instead, an officer stepped forward, a woman with short dark hair and steady eyes. "You wanted knowledge," she said. Her voice carried no warmth, but no threat either, only certainty. "Then you must see it for yourself." They were led through streets alive with energy. Children laughed in parks. Workers carried supplies across busy lanes. There was no sense of a people living in fear, no sense of weakness. Instead, there was resilience in every step, in every glance. Vaylin felt it more with every passing moment. Humanity was not untouchable because of weapons or fleets. It was something deeper, a strength that lived in the smallest details. In a quiet hall, he was shown relics of Earth's past. Old flags torn from wars, medals worn by soldiers, pictures of battles fought against impossible odds. He listened as veterans spoke of wars where surrender was never an option, where even defeat did not end the fight. One old soldier leaned close to Vaylin, his voice rough. Empires think strength is ships, guns, numbers, but strength is the will to keep standing when all else falls. That is why we are never targeted, because anyone who tests us learns that we do not break. The words struck Vaylin harder than any weapon. He saw it now, the truth carved into ruins, whispered in the silence of fallen empires. Humanity was not spared because they were weak. They were spared because they were the only species the galaxy could not conquer. The silence around Earth was not protection, it was warning. That night, as Vaylin stood under the dark sky of Earth, he felt the weight of everything he had learned. The stars stretched above him, calm and endless, but the truth burned sharp in his mind. Humanity was not untouchable because of what they had. They were untouchable because of what they were, and he could not help but wonder how long the galaxy would keep ignoring that truth. The shocking truth, Vaylin had seen what no one else dared to see. He had walked among ruins, where empires left their last words carved into stone. He had heard the voices of soldiers who never surrendered, whose will was stronger than defeat. He had stood on Earth itself and felt the weight of a people who did not bow to fear. But knowledge is never without a price. Even as he prepared to leave Earth, messages were waiting for him. His government had discovered his research. They had read his scrolls, his recordings, his maps. And now, the leaders of his empire believed they had found the answer to a question that had burned for centuries: how to conquer humanity. Their ships were already on the move. Vaylin begged them to stop. He sent warnings, fragments of truth, desperate pleas to the council. Do not march against them. You will not return. You will not survive. Humanity cannot be broken. But the council had grown blind with arrogance. They had read only the surface of his findings. They believed the silence that erased empires was a myth, an exaggeration built from fear. They believed that their fleets were stronger, their weapons more advanced, their soldiers more disciplined. Humans are ordinary, they declared. We are not afraid of stories. Vaylin's heart broke. He had wanted to bring knowledge, not doom. He had wanted to answer the question, not unleash the silence upon his own people. Yet it was too late. The fleets sailed. From the windows of the archive tower, Vaylin and Irelth watched the stars burn as ships vanished into the void. Rows of war vessels gleamed with power, banners shining across the sky. To those who looked up, it was a proud and glorious sight. But to Vaylin it was a funeral procession. Days passed. Then weeks. At first, reports came back, brief, cold updates. The fleets had reached the edge of human space. They had seen patrol craft. They had scanned Earth from afar. They had made their demands. Then the reports stopped. Silence, the same silence that had swallowed so many before. The council waited for word. But none came. They sent more ships to search, but those too were swallowed. No wreckage, no signals, no return. Vaylin stood in the chamber of the council as the truth closed in. Their faces were pale, their voices broken. For the first time, he saw fear in their eyes. This cannot be, one whispered. They are too small, another said. Where are our fleets? Cried a third. Vaylin spoke softly, but his words struck like iron. Your fleets are gone. Your empire has joined the pattern. You asked why humans are never targeted. Now you know. The silence is not myth. It is not chance. It is the truth you refuse to hear. Humanity is the storm that devours those who test them, not because of their weapons, not because of their numbers, but because of what they are. They do not surrender. They do not break. And the galaxy has always known this, even when you would not. The chamber was silent. No one spoke. No one argued. For the first time in centuries, the council had no answer. Later that night, Vaylin walked alone through the empty halls of the archive. The air felt heavier, as if the weight of countless lost voices pressed against him. He thought of the Zaith Dominion, of the carved warnings, of the broken temples and the whispers of the past. He thought of the old soldier on Earth, whose eyes had burned with unshaken fire. He thought of his people. Now gone into silence, humanity remained. In the endless sky, Earth turned quietly, fragile yet unbroken. The galaxy would continue to whisper, to fear, to wonder. But Vaylin no longer wondered. He knew the truth. The reason humanity was never targeted was not a secret weapon, nor a hidden shield. It was the human spirit itself, an unbroken will that outlasted fleets, empires, and time itself. And though Vaylin trembled at the thought, a single question lingered in his mind as he stared into the stars. What if, one day, humanity stopped waiting to be targeted and chose to strike first?